We present Kenneth Williams, Derek Nimmo, Clement Freud and Peter Jones in Just a Minute. And as the minute waltz fades away, here to tell you about it is our chairman, Nicholas Parsons.
Thank you. Thank you very much indeed, and welcome once again to Just a Minute. And as you've just heard, once again, we have the thrill and pleasure of having an all-male panel. 4 experienced male exponents of the game competing against each other to try and see who will get most points and be the winner as they speak, if they can, for just 60 seconds on some unlikely subject without hesitation, without repetition, without deviating from the subject on the card. And we're going to begin the show this week with Derek Nimmo. Derek, the subject is nothing at all. So can you talk on nothing at all for 60 seconds, starting now?
Op til tilfælde more varnished for denne barnefuge, but then must just mash no old Lancashire wolves to learn Kenneth Freud in a body penny fingers. I'll upon you, fiddly body John around about him. I'm not a bull till it's all of all. And up around the fiddly pines, and big lovely lights, and dilly trotties running sausages and mash and turning round.
Derek, sorry to interrupt you because it was very beautiful. Very, very beautiful. But Clement Freud has actually had the temerity to challenge you. What's your challenge?
Deviation.
Why?
There was a raspberry.
Yes, he actually was not going on nothing at all. He was giving us a great deal of codswallop. So I think the raspberry was within the context of the game. Deviation. 46 seconds for you, Clement, on nothing at all, starting now. Derek Nimmo has challenged.
Hesitation.
Well done, Derek. You have a point. And nothing at all is back with you. 44 seconds starting now.
Prislani porampatina vana molena karanchi ponadi maswale kalaji varakaruna pati fukalene aruna ra
Peter Jones a challenge.
Repetition of Piranha.
Yes. Quite agree, Peter. You have a point. You have 30 seconds on nothing at all, starting now.
It's an extremely difficult subject to talk about. I hesitate myself. I'm not going to repeat it, but I would like to say, without any fear of contradiction, that the situation has been exaggerated. As I said in 1939, when I was first asked this question...
Derek Nimmo has challenged. Why?
Deviation.
Why?
He's talking about something. He's talking about 1939 when he was first asked the question, so he's not talking about nothing at all.
Well, actually, Derek, you were going on what might be described as rubbish, which I imagine was your description of nothing at all, and Peter is talking somewhat in the same vein about nothing at all. It doesn't really make much sense to me, so I think it's only right to leave it with Peter with another point, 11 seconds, nothing at all, Peter, starting now.
And the previous government made similar accusations.
Kenneth Williams has challenged.
Deviation is now specifically mentioning a previous government, so you can't be saying nothing at all.
Everybody's been in on this ridiculous round, which is impossible for the chairman to judge. So I will tell you what we'll do. We'll let Kenneth Williams come in. Other words, I will agree with your challenge and give you a point and say you have 9 seconds on nothing at all, starting now.
Can be said to exist in a vacuum, a place where there is no spirit, where there is no oxygen, where never falls the dew. You don't keep myself there.
Actually, Clement Freud did manage to challenge just before the whistle went. What was your challenge, Clement?
3 were there.
Yes, I'm
afraid he is right. There's no question about that. He is right. Yes, I think we have to give him the benefit of that. Yes.
I'm delighted to see this tremendous change come over you from last week, from fighting for every point. They're great sportsmanship. All right, Clement Freud, as I agree with your challenge of repetition, you take the subject over, and there's 1 second left, starting now.
Nothing at all.
I have nothing at all to say about that last round, except it was an impossible round on which to judge. All right, so we continue now with the next subject. Clement, it is your turn to begin. The subject is the voice of the people. Can you talk to us about that for just a minute, starting now?
The voice of the people is one of those ridiculous phrases which people use when they're not certain of something and say, but it was the voice of the people. There also is a newspaper which is published on Sundays, called The People, which has a man in it known as The Voice. And in this column, each 7th day of the week, you can read incredible utterances about how people feel or do not on...
Derek Nimmo has challenged.
I think we're too many people, really.
But that's the subject on the card, you see.
The voice of the people, yes. You can repeat the subject on the card, but not one word isolated. more than once. You said people twice.
You heard that.
So, Derek, you have a point, and you have 30 seconds left, starting now.
It doesn't infuriate me when people like Clement Freud say it's nonsense to talk about the voice of the people. For me, Kenneth Williams is the true voice of the people of this country. When you hear a man who is upstanding and righteous, who's brave and filled with conviction, and is proud to say, I'm proud to be an Englishman. That's what
Peter
he
Jones has
is a
challenged.
great person.
Repetition of proud.
Yes, I'm afraid you made him too proud.
Do you mind, Kenneth?
No, that was lovely.
Sir Peter Jones, I agree with your challenge. The voice of the people is with you now, with 12 seconds to go, starting now.
Hitler made a claim to be the voice of the people, and brilliantly stage-managed by his Minister of Propaganda, Goebbels. Mussolini was another one.
So, Peter was then speaking when the whistle went, and he's now gone into the lead with that little bit of assistance from his two opponents on the other side. And Peter Jones, your turn to begin. The subject, high tea. Would you talk on that one for 60 seconds, and you start now?
It's a delightful meal, rather earlier than dinner, and often enjoyed in the north of England, though it does conjure up in my mind pictures of tinned salmon and canned peaches, which are not favourite forms of food in my estimation. But
Derek Nimmo.
Hesitation, my estimation.
Oh, he was almost... yes, I think he got to the point.
Yes, I did
of
hesitate, yes.
I think you had. Sometimes difficult to judge, but we give the benefit of the doubt to Derek on this occasion, and there are 38 seconds on high tea, Derek, starting now.
Well, I too enjoy high teas quite tremendously, particularly in Oldham and Lancashire, where I worked in the Theatre Royal.
Peter Jones is challenged.
hesitation.
Yes, I think we have to give it to you this time, Peter. 33 seconds on high tea, starting now.
No doubt people climbing Everest will take thermos flasks with them and sit at little tables on stools and enjoy perhaps the highest tea in the world, made with boiling water and milk and sugar. The classic way of enjoying this delectable drink. A slice of lemon can be substituted for the milk.
What? You have been challenged.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Kenneth, your challenge.
Deviation. If the tea were boiling, you couldn't drink it. So they're enjoying boiling tea.
People talk about a boiling hot cup of tea, and it's probably only 70 degrees centigrade, not 100 degrees centigrade. So I disagree with the challenge. There's 1 second for Peter on high tea, starting now.
A steaming hot...
So, Peter was then speaking when the whistle went, and Derek Nimmo, you begin the next round. The subject is amusing the baby. Derek, that is the subject, and you have 60 seconds, starting now.
I find the most pleasant way...
Kenneth Williams...
Hesitation.
No, rotten of you.
Well, was it or not? Whether it was rotten of me is hard to point.
I don't think it was hesitation, and I think it was rotten of you as well to buzz him quite so rapidly. He has 58 seconds on amusing the baby, starting now.
If one is going to talk about amusing the baby, it's probably better to talk like Kenneth Williams, and then they can't come in and buzz you. But my favourite way of amusing babies actually is to recite nursery rhymes.
Kenneth Williams a challenge.
Amusing twice.
Amusing is on the card.
Oh, I'm furious.
You're trying very hard, Kenneth. Don't slacken.
Well, I feel I should get my oar in. I don't feel I've been given the coverage. I don't feel I've been serviced at all on this.
Perhaps you need more than a service. Perhaps you should go in for a retread.
I know. I do feel it, yes.
I disagree with the challenge, alas, and Derek has a point in the subject with 43 seconds on amusing the baby, starting now.
Little Miss Muffet sat on the tuffet, eating her curds and whey. There came a big spider and sat down beside her.
This is recitation. It's not talking without hesitation or deviation.
It's a very good way of amusing the baby, and it's the way that most parents adopt. With Little Miss Muffet, so he was still going very well on the subject.
I think it's disgraceful. You all sit here and recite a load of poetry. I mean, you don't have to talk at all or do anything involuntary, do you?
Well,
just learn a load of poems before you turn up every week, couldn't you? You're all around, go out beside the river, lie along fields of barley, and ride the clothe the world and meet the sky, going down the cabin, look at it forever.
But that would hardly fit in with,
I'm here trying to be inventive. I'm trying to do my best. I am genuinely being authentic.
I know. You are. You're one of the most authentic people in show business, Kenneth, and we all take our hats off.
So I get the subject?
No, you've lost a point. Amusing the baby is still with you, Derek. You have another point, and there are 37 seconds starting now.
Of course, one can wave rattles and make loud noises and come up behind them and say boo. That sometimes is very popular. I found little children less than a year old who go into shrieks of laughter, ecstasies of enjoyment when I go behind them and say the aforementioned word.
Clement Freud is challenged.
Behind twice, repetition.
Yes. I thought you...
Absolutely right.
I thought you had anticipated the fact he was going to say boo again, and he very cleverly changed it. But you found a behind in there, two behinds, in fact, double derriere. So, amusing the baby is now with you, Clement Freud, and there are 24 seconds left, starting now.
Almost anything will amuse a baby if you look stupid enough.
Kenneth Williams is challenged.
Deviation is completely untrue. I look up at this stupid and I never amused any of them. I just think they're the same face.
Last week I gave Derek Nimmo a bonus point when they exploited one of his remarks. I'll do the same to you, Kenneth, for that one, because obviously it wasn't a serious challenge. Clement Freud, we leave the subject with you. You do understand, don't you?
Yes, Clement does. Clem does. I understand.
And you have 18 seconds on amusing the baby, starting now.
But there's no reason whatsoever why you should...
Derek Nimmo has challenged.
Has Derek?
Yes, Derek, you have a point.
Why?
14 seconds.
Most unfair, most unfair. Clem here trying his hardest. That was really wrong. Why was Clem destroyed like that?
He was hesitating, and it was a correct challenge of Derek's. Amusing the baby, 14 seconds, Derek, starting now.
Jack and Jill went up the hill to fetch a pail of water. John...
Deviation.
Why?
From the nursery rhyme. If he's going to recite, then he's got
Yes, I quite agree with that deviation. And also I said deviation...
I can amuse the baby any way I like. I can recite the nursery rhyme any way I like. Doesn't matter which way I recite it, as long as I amuse it.
Stop it! It's a very difficult decision to make, because obviously in my mind he had established the fact that he was reciting Jack and Jill.
But the baby might be the first time it had heard it.
Yes, but he'd recited before. He was reciting again, so he was repetitious.
All right, when we have this impossible situation, which is really almost impossible to judge, we let the audience be the superior judges in the situation, and we ask you to give us a decision. Now, if you agree with Clement's challenge, will you cheer? If you disagree, will you boo? And will you all do it together now? Are you feeling all right, sir? Derek Nimmo, you have a unanimous decision, I would say. You still have amusing the baby with 10 seconds left, starting now.
Sometimes I show them photographs of Kenneth Williams, and that they find they've done because he has
A repetition of Kenneth Williams.
Not from me.
Not from Derek. He didn't mention Kenneth Williams. Somebody else did.
No, Kenneth Williams just spoke.
Kenneth Williams mentioned his own name, actually.
Oh, did he? Yes.
5 seconds on amusing the baby with you, Derek, starting now.
Or you can crawl along the floor.
Kenneth Williams is challenged.
I think it's all very boring the way he amuses babies. I think it's a disgrace. Boring and devious. I mean, crawling up behind them and going boo, it frightened the life out of them.
You speak for yourself, Kenneth. So I disagree with that challenge, because
he's had it for ages, this subject.
I know
he's hogging it. Definitely hogging it.
Well, he hasn't been correctly challenged yet. He's been keeping going very well in spite of all the efforts to unseat him. And there are 4 seconds still with you, Derek, on amusing the baby, starting now.
If you pull back the napkin, put your tongue on their tummy and go, they like it very much indeed.
That is a disgrace, you know.
It just shows that Derek Nimmo really did help his wife to bring up the baby.
Yes, but it says you're supposed to speak for 60 seconds, not go... I mean, if we're allowed noises, I could do quite a few.
We've already had a raspberry in this programme at the end, and I know that all the children like that. I think that one of Derek's children's in the front, and probably he's looking happy now because he had those lovely things done to his tummy.
I can do the drum and the trumpet. I can do that... I mean,
and you will be had up for repetition. Kenneth Williams, you complained a little while ago that you hadn't got your oar enough. You can now have a go because the subject is with you, and the one that Ian Messrs has thought of for you is Al Capone, or Al Capone. 60 seconds starting now.
Well, I only know that this gentleman achieved an awful lot through this law which was known as prohibition, which meant you simply could not teeter in and order your dry martini or your bourbon and rye or whatever. You simply had to have the cordial, lemon, orange, or nectarine, as it is sometimes known. But there were saloons or clip joints, sleazy back parlours, where crooks made money by offering you the offensive liquor at certain rates. They were very expensive, and these people made money out...
Derek Nimmo's challenge.
Revolution made money.
Yes. Oh, you were going to get such a round of applause in 10 seconds' time.
He just waits till you're over the ump, doesn't he?
That last 10 seconds is really tough, isn't it, if you're trying to keep going for 60 seconds. You did very well. Nobody's gone for 48 seconds before, but there are actually 12 seconds to go. Al Capone is now with you, Derek Nimmo, starting now.
Born in Naples and moved to Chicago. The interesting thing about the man is really that the only time that the police were able to arrest him was for avoiding income tax, and he spent 11 years in jail for that offense, and finally died a broken man.
I think it's about time I gave you the score. I haven't done it for time. It's a very interesting situation, not abnormal. Kenneth is in 4th place. Clement, this is strange, is in 2nd place. He's rather way behind Peter, who's in 2nd place, and Derek Nimmo has got a very strong lead at the end of that round.
We're both in 2nd place, and each of us is behind the other.
What did I say?
You better say it all again, dear, because it was hopeless.
What did I say? Oh, well, I'll say it again. The situation is that Kenneth Williams is in 4th place. He has been there before, but he has been known to win. Clement Freud is in 3rd place, which is unusual, but he's still been known to win. Peter Jones is in 2nd place, which is quite a good position for him, but he's also been known to win. And Derek Nimmo is very definitely the winner at this particular moment of the game, but we're still only about 3/4 of the way through. Clement Freud, your turn to begin, and the subject is showing willing. It's just what I was doing a short while ago. Clement, showing willing, 60 seconds starting now.
The first time I showed Willing, who is an exceedingly pleasant pony, 14 hands, 2 inches, was at Libra, Market, and...
Kenneth Williams' challenge.
I'm afraid hesitation. The whole thing was going straight to a halt, wasn't it?
Yes. And the pony came to a halt. I think he was rather making it up. Kenneth, I agree with your challenge, and therefore you have 48 seconds on showing willing starting now.
This is a quality we should all cultivate, for it simply means that you do cooperate with society in general, and lend a passing hand to any stranger who happens upon your path, and along that road of... What's the matter?
You've been challenged.
Who by?
Who by? Derek Nimmo.
Oh, sorry.
Derek, what's the challenge?
Well, he's not speaking about it. It's sort of plain song, isn't it, really?
What is your challenge?
Deviation.
Why?
Because he's not speaking, he's plain song.
No, you see, if you'd had him for hesitation, I would have said he was hesitating on a word.
I see.
But I don't think he was doing what you said. Kenneth, so you keep the subject, but there are 38 seconds on showing willing starting now.
And if someone says to you, will you undertake this rather fearful task, and you, out of the kindness of your heart, say, certainly, I put myself entirely at your disposal, you can rightly be said to show willing. I continually practice this, and people have complimented...
Clement Freud has challenged.
Reputation of people.
Yes, there have been quite a lot of people in your...
People who need people are the luckiest people in the world.
Thank you very much. We'll throw you our coins afterwards, but right now you've been challenged correctly by Clement Freud, so he gains a point, and showing willing as the subject for 15 seconds with you, Clement, starting now.
Willing was actually shown in the leading rein class. In which...
Kenneth Williams' challenge.
Repetition, we've already discussed this, pony.
Yes. If you say showing willing, You can repeat the subject on the card. So you have a point, and there are 11 seconds for you on showing Willing Clement starting now.
And one a rosette, which is now hanging over the fireplace in our house in Suffolk. The only other time showing Willing had any sort of beneficial repercussions was...
Well, as you know, you can repeat the subject on the card, and Clement Freud decided it was a horse, and so he kept going. He's moved into second place alongside Peter Jones. Derek Nimmo still in the lead. Peter Jones, your turn to begin, and the subject is poltergeists. Can you talk about them for 60 seconds, starting now?
I associate poltergeists with spirits and things that have passed over onto the other side. I did once go to a meeting which was under the supervision of a medium at the Rudolf Steiner Hall, or was it perhaps the Wigmore? Yes, I think it was. And there, the spirits and...
Clement Freud, a challenge.
Repetition of spirits.
Yes, and Clement, you have a point, and there are 36 seconds on poltergeists starting now.
Poltergeists seem predominantly to be things that go boomp in the night. And every time you investigate such a noise, or the movement of furniture, a curtain suddenly blowing out into a room, or even a shriek, a scream, or other loud noises, poltergeists are invariably to blame. Many houses in this country are more valuable because the owners say poltergeist...
Derek Nimmo challenge.
Well, hesitation.
Yes, I think so. Yes, it was debatable. It's difficult to judge when it is and when it isn't. But he paused long enough, I think, to consider there was hesitation. 12 seconds on poltergeists with you, Derek.
Staying in Little Hallam Hall in Lincolnshire one night in August 1958. I slept in a bedroom with a four-poster bed. I'd just gone into a deep slumber when suddenly...
Derek Nimmo was speaking then when the whistle went. He's increased his lead, but Clement Freud has moved into second place now, creeping up on him. Peter's 1 point behind Clement in third place, and Kenneth is just a little way behind. Don't be so unkind. He'll win one of these days again and show you all. Derek Nimmo, your turn to begin. The subject is courage. Would you talk to us about that for 60 seconds, starting now?
Courage, brother, do not stumble. How very wise those words are when they're followed with trust in God and do the right. That is what we as a nation need today. Courage to face the adversity before us. Courage to look at the flag of which we're so proud and to wander into the world proud that we're born of English stock. Ladies and gentlemen, here...
Peter Jones has interrupted your...
repetition of proud.
Yes, you were too proud then, I'm afraid. As you
Very good, very stirring it was, I thought.
Yes. But you still repeated himself, so there are 35 seconds for you on courage, Peter, starting now.
It really is that quality which enables one to go on and do whatever it is one is attempting in spite of a chilly feeling of fear. Now, when people are supposed to do brave acts and are decorated for so doing, then they often claim that they do not know what courage is. Now, on the other hand, there are similar people, heroes, some of them, heroines, celebrated people.
Yes, and I'm afraid there was 3 seconds with you now, Derek, on courage, starting now.
The red badge of courage.
I'm afraid we have no more time to play Just a Minute, which is a great pity because we enjoy it, I hope, as much as you at home enjoy listening to it. The end of that round, Kenneth Williams finished in fourth place, a little way behind Peter Jones and Clement Freud, who were equal in second place, but they were undoubtedly a long way behind this week's winner, who is Derek Nimmo. We do hope you've enjoyed this edition of Just a Minute, and we'll want to tune in again next time. Until then, from all of us here, goodbye.
The chairman of Just a Minute was Nicholas Parsons. The programme was devised by Ian Messiter and produced by David Hatch.
we present Kenneth Williams, Clement Freud, Peter Jones, and Sheila Hancock in Just a Minute. And as the minute waltz fades away, here to tell you about it is our chairman, Nicholas Parsons.
Thank you. Thank you very much indeed. Hello and welcome to Just a Minute. And we're delighted this week to welcome back Sheila Hancock to fill the fourth chair and play against our three regular male contestants in the game. And just to remind you, I'm going to ask them to speak as usual for just 1 minute on some unlikely subject without hesitation, without repetition, and without deviating from the subject which is on the card in front of me. And let us begin the show this week with Clement Freud. Clement, will you talk about Piggybacks for 60 seconds, starting now?
Of all the really sophisticated means of managing money, a piggy bank is probably the least. It is usually made of pottery, also wood, sometimes metal, and has in the back a slit through which you put such coins or pieces of paper as you have on you, which you might need for some further occasion. Christmas, a birthday, next year, the budget.
Kenneth wins this challenge.
That's really all I had to say.
Yeah. It sounded rather like it, actually.
Good.
You mentioned the word...
Well, I thought it was hesitation, definitely, yes.
Yes, it was more than... I think it was complete dry-up, actually. Hesitation. I agree with your challenge, Kenneth, so you gain a point for a correct challenge, and you take over the subject of piggy banks, and there are 32 seconds left, starting now.
In my day, these were always little pop.
Clement Freud is challenged.
Oh, it's very mean. I was hardly underway. I gave you a chance. You were underway, weren't you?
Yes, but he didn't say pop, 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 did he?
Oh, well, I was just feeling me way. Good grief, we want to start somewhere, haven't we? I mean, you wouldn't come up here and do it straight away, would you?
Anyway. Clement Freud, what is your take?
Hesitation.
Hesitation, yes, and repetition of pop, pop, pop. Clement, I agree with your challenge, so you get a point. You take the subject back, piggy banks, and there are 27 seconds left, starting now.
A well-known bookmaker in Scotland, whose name is Banks, has a younger brother known as Piggy, who has eyes which are very close together and pink ears.
Kenneth wins this challenge.
Deviation.
Why?
I don't believe a word of it. I mean, the whole thing's made up. It's too delightfully coincidental, isn't it?
Well,
This
however
low-called
delightfully
Piggy and-
coincidental it may be, as long as he keeps to the subject of piggy banks and we can't prove that he's accurate or not, he's allowed to keep going because he hasn't deviated from the subject on the card. So, Clement Freud, a wrong challenge, so you get another point, and you have 18 seconds on piggy banks, starting now.
Piggybanks derived his nickname from this extraordinary noise which he used to make, like...
Sheila Hancock is challenged.
Repetition of
No.
Well, repetition of one of the sounds.
There was
anyway.
no actual sound I repeated as far as...
You went
No, I only...
Well, what did you do? Do it.
Can do it again. I think it sounded.
I'd rather not.
I think it sounded a little. I think one of the sounds was repeated. Anyway, Sheila, nice to hear from you. You have 13 seconds on piggy banks, starting now.
I would think it more than likely in a pigsty that there is a little corner where the pigs keep a little bit of food, and they probably have the equivalent of a checkbook where they go and draw out.
Tells us that 60 seconds is up, and whoever is speaking at that moment gains an extra point. The idea of a pig having the equivalent of a checkbook I thought was terribly devious. Anyway, Sheila, nobody challenged you, so you got the extra point. And Kenneth Williams, you will please begin the second round. Piggybacks.
Well,
Can you talk on that subject for 60 seconds? Starting now.
Well, I was once given this piggyback by a friend because I was in this cinema and a lot of youths made unseemly remarks. Oh, it's him on the telly. Oh, that nit and rude things of that nature. So I flew out this side door. I said, how are we going to get over? Because there was no way, apparently, over this wall, which is very
Clement
high.
Freud is
And he said, don't worry, I'll give you a piggyback. Well, I got halfway up and my braces went. I used to wear braces. I was standing there with my trousers round my ankles. I did feel such a fool. Can you imagine?
I know,
But one
Kenneth.
tries to keep up appearances.
I know.
mean, up. I should say. These were coming down.
Kenneth!
Well,
You were challenged about 30 seconds back.
oh?
Yes.
Oh, it's going to ruin a lovely anecdote like that.
We didn't know. We let you go on.
Oh, I
We let
see.
you finish.
What was the basis of his challenge?
The basis of your challenge with Clement Freud was what?
He repeated the word over.
Yes, you did go over more than once. Clement Freud was the first to challenge. He gains a point, and there are 35 seconds left, Clement, on Piggybacks, starting now.
What you do, quite simply, is to leap up on the back of another human being, thrusting your legs between his arms.
Kenneth Williams' challenge.
This
Why?
is not the way to give a piggyback at all. If you asked any infant to leap upon your back, you might give him or do yourself great injury in the process. The thing to do, you see, is to
Depending on
kneel
your-
down and let anyone just get onto your back in the kneeling
Depending
position.
on your physical strength. If you were fairly strong, someone could leap on your back and you could grab them and off you go.
No, the whole point of a piggyback is not to ask them to leap on, it's to bend and let them get on. That's the
No,
whole
there's no
point.
particular point,
Of course it is. You're
no
mixing
point
it all up,
either
you see.
way.
If you want someone to leap on your back, you are not in the realm of piggyback, you're in the realm of athletics. You all need to be
All right,
very,
this
very
was
good.
an athletic
You
pig.
all start leaping about. Yes, of course you are. Nothing to do with a piggyback.
You are very difficult sometimes, Kenneth. This was an athletic piggyback anyway. A piggyback is once they are mounted. And whether you leap on or not doesn't really matter, because he was still keeping on piggybacks. And so he has another point, and there are 28 seconds left, Clement, starting now.
But quite a good way to achieve a piggyback is to lean down and ask a child to...
That is disgraceful. That's deviation. That is taking the words out of my mouth. That's devious, that is.
Why?
Taking the words out of my mouth is devious. Utterly devious, not straightforward at all. Taking words that I have said in good faith out of my mouth, out of the mouths of babes and sucklings shall it come.
I'm sorry, that is not a correct challenge. Clement keeps the subject, and there are 24 seconds left, starting now.
I once saw a child being given a suckling piggyback, which was quite a different thing altogether, because it was a minute animal, no bigger than a caterpillar, and the child was a toddler of mature weeks.
Sheila Hancock has challenged. Why?
It has to be deviation. What is he talking about? A small
no idea,
pig as
this
big as
idea-
a caterpillar.
I wasn't listening.
No. It's pretty obvious, because you all missed out the fact that he repeated the word child as well. Yes, Sheila, you have the subject now with 11 seconds on Piggybacks, starting now.
And you lean over, touch your knees with your hands, and, as Kenneth says, the other person puts their hands on your shoulders and jumps.
Clement Freud has challenged.
2 hands, I'm
There's
afraid.
too many
Oh,
hands
yes,
in your piggybacks.
right.
Yes.
Oh,
only
wow.
have 2, not 4.
Yeah.
Clement, you have the subject back with 3 seconds to go on Piggybacks, starting now.
At the local village fete, Piggybacks.
Piggybacks gave Clement Freud a large number of points with some incorrect challenges from Kenneth, and also the fact he was speaking when the whistle went. So he has a very definite lead at the end of that round over everybody else. Peter Jones, will you begin the next round? Smashing records. Will you talk on that subject for 60 seconds, starting now?
Now, that is something I've always rather wanted to do, not on the sports field or in the swimming pool or even playing this game. But when I go into a restaurant with a nice damask tablecloth and an inviting atmosphere, bright lights, and the record, somebody puts it on, a player, and the sound reverberates through this place, I get terribly annoyed and would like to leap out of my chair and pick up the offending disc and place it across my lap, and then with a quick karate chop, smash it into 1,000 fragments, because I feel that the sound...
Clement Freud is challenged.
Deviation.
Why?
Well, a karate chop on a record cannot possibly produce 1,000 pieces.
You've never seen the way Peter Jones does it.
Ideally 2.
This is a long playing record.
You see, the point is here, it's so difficult to judge, because if you did a proper karate chop, you would break it in 2, that is accurate.
But
Peter
1,000.
Jones, I know, is not a karate expert, so if he gave it a
How do
karate
you
chop,
know
I could
that?
well believe... I could well believe it would go into 1,000 pieces.
Oh, would you?
So I will give him the benefit of the doubt. He's still smashing records, and there are 18 seconds left, starting now.
Alternately, I could put it on a concrete floor and get a large hammer.
Kenneth Williams is challenged.
Deviation, he said alternately. He meant alternatively.
I know he meant alternatively, but could that make sense if he said alternately?
What, does he mean he alternates between his karate chops and
Exactly.
I beg your pardon, then I withdraw my challenge. You didn't
Back and forth. Well, he's trying it first on the knee and then on the floor.
Oh, I beg your pardon.
And back again.
I beg your pardon. I withdraw.
But it's
Straight
too
away.
late, actually. It's an incorrect challenge, so he gets a point. So there are 15 seconds left with you, Peter, still on Smashing Records, starting now.
Of course, pinned against the wall with perhaps a drawing pin, I could throw stones at these.
Clement Freud got in that time first.
Sorry.
Hesitation.
Yes, indeed. So you have the subject and the point, Clement, and there are 8 seconds left on Smashing Records, starting now.
100 yards in 8.6 seconds, a mile in 3 minutes. They're great.
Sheila Hancock is challenged.
Hoist with his own petard.
What is the challenge, Sheila?
Hesitation.
I agree, and there's 1 second to go. Smashing Records, Sheila, starting now.
Menuhin, Zelgar.
So Sheila Hancock cleverly got in there with only 1 second to go, doing what Clement Freud often successfully does. Sheila, your turn to begin. The subject predicament, 60 seconds, starting now.
Well, one of the worst predicaments you could be in is to be given 1 minute in which to talk about predicaments. However, it's on the
Peter Jones
card.
is challenged.
Well, it's absolute rubbish. It couldn't possibly be one of the worst predicaments you could ever be in.
It
At
could
this
be if you've got
moment.
Peter Jones sitting beside you, ready to buzz you as rapidly as that. Kenneth Williams over there about to do his nut on any subject under the sun, and Clement Freud looking as if he's going to come in at any moment, particularly when there's only 3 seconds left. So, Sheila Hancock, you have a point, and you still have predicaments, and there are 54 seconds left, starting now.
Many people get into this situation in the theatre. For instance, there is a true story of an actor who was enacting a murder scene, and he had a gun with which he was supposed to shoot his fellow artiste. And try as he would, it wouldn't fire. So in desperation, he went over and kicked this other person very hard and said, "God, the boot was poisoned." Whereupon the other person dropped dead. Then another thing that actually happened to me was when I was an ASM and we were doing a murder story play, and I came on with a tray of drinks, and when I went to go off, I couldn't undo the door because the door handle came away in my hand.
Peter Jones is challenged.
Repetition of door.
Yes, she paused after she said murder a second
I
time
did.
to
Well,
give you a
she did
chance to come in, but you...
yes. Well,
Yes, I
I
did.
didn't like to. I wanted her to get underway.
She wasn't repeating it, because door and door handle are quite different, you see, because door handle's hyphenated.
But I did pause so he can have it. The story was that I went off through the fireplace because I couldn't get out through the door.
All the
Sound
old
like a very
shouted, bye-bye,
sooty-
Santa Claus, did they?
Came back covered in salt.
There are 7 seconds for you, Peter, on predicaments, starting now.
They are really something to avoid if you possibly can, because
Kenneth Williams is challenged.
Deviation, this is dramatically incorrect. They are really something to avoid. I mean, does he mean that unreally they're not to be avoided? They are really, they are to be avoided, or they're not. What's he talking about? They're really to be avoided. How can you unreally
really are.
Exactly
to be
what he
avoided.
said. They really are to be avoided. So he has 3 seconds left on predicaments, starting now.
whatever you may say, it's better to really avoid them.
Peter Jones was then speaking when the whistle went, so he moved forward somewhat in that round. And Clement, your turn to begin. The subject, candle auctions. Can you talk on that for 60 seconds, starting now?
An ordinary auction sees some item or antique being bid for and getting knocked down to... Why doesn't somebody buzz?
Because we don't want
Sheila Hancock buzzed.
We didn't buzz because none of us want to talk about it. Well, it was hesitation.
Because I need a
so-
glass of water.
Hesitation. They're all nervous at the subject,
I
so I'll
won't
get
be
them in
very long.
quickly. We'll have a bit of fun. So, Sheila, you have 47 seconds on candle auctions, starting now.
Well, I suppose it probably is an auction where they get rid of candles.
Kenneth Williams has challenged.
Deviation, it is not so.
You're quite right, Kenneth. And there are 43 seconds for you now on candle auctions, starting now.
Well, this is the process by which, very common in the continent, you sit round the table, people say how much they are prepared to go to, and during the entire process, a candle is lit and slowly burns. Now, if you don't get your bid in, by the time the candles burn right the way down, you're right out.
Clement
They say, oh, the
Freud
candle's out, so you're out.
Clement Freud challenged you well before your candle went out. Clement, what is your challenge?
Deviation.
Why?
During the entire process, a candle is lit. It sounds as if
light.
1,000 people with matches are buzzing along. He means the candle is lighted.
I'm not having none of that. They all knew what I was talking about, didn't you?
Kenneth,
all knew.
you think I've been harsh on you in this round. I think probably Clement has a good challenge there, but we did know what you were talking about. So we'll give you the benefit of the doubt and let you keep the subject with a point. And candle auctions are still with you with 26 seconds to go, starting now.
Then there's the other kind of candle auction, which is a twisted one. Now, the ordinary candle is a straight side. The twisted candle...
Clement Freud is challenged.
Too twisted.
Too twisted. So, Clement, you have a correct challenge this time.
It's a disgrace, isn't it?
18 seconds. On candle auctions, Clement, starting now.
And as the wax drips slowly onto the auction room floor, the bids get ever and increasingly slower. 48 pounds, says one man.
Oh, dear me, yes. How much slower could he have got before someone had challenged him? Clement, you've increased your lead at the end of that round, and, of course, you're still the overall leader. Kenneth Williams, your turn to begin.
Well, thank goodness for that.
I would say we've heard from you quite a lot already, Kenneth, even if you haven't been going on your own subjects much. Nightingale. That is a subject that Ian Mester's thought of for you, and would you talk about it? 60 seconds, starting now.
Well, of course, the classic example would be Philomela, who complained bitterly about her husband's behavior, and Zeus therefore said, "You shall become a nightingale." And lovely were the sounds that issued from her. Of course, a more modern...
Clement Freud is challenged.
Repetition of course. He started with, of course.
Yes, and as he started with it, I won't penalise him until he's really, on this occasion anyway. So keep going, and with 43 seconds on Nightingale, Kenneth, starting now.
A wonderful woman who started this hospital in Scutari with the aiding and abetting, one could say, of Sidney Herbert. "Oh, Sid, help me out," she said, because the drains were terrible.
Sheila Hancock has challenged you.
Deviation. I'm quite sure Florence Nightingale never said, "Oh, Sid, help me out." Sir Sidney, give me a hand, she might have said.
I'm sure she probably was more likely to have said that, but we've no proof, have we, that she didn't suddenly do an impersonation of Kenneth Williams and say, "Oh, Sid." She might have, after all, in her spare time, been the Kenneth Williams of her era, but she never...
God forbid, he's unique to this age, surely.
Well, all right, I was harsh on Clement Freud's correct challenge. I'll be harsh on yours, Sheila. Leave the subject with Kenneth with 30 seconds to go, starting now.
And she is pictured today in the Mall there with her lamp, always known as the lady with one. Allowed to repeat the aforesaid vessel, which had a bit of oil in the bottom and a wick. And she said, "Nobody must get on my thing in the thing." Otherwise she'd be furious. Up the hill she went through snow, wind and hail.
Your cheer was for his deviation and hesitation and everything else, which they let him get away with then, because that was a pretty saucy story. But we did hear from you to good effect, so you have moved forward with great rapidity into third place, Kenneth. You are 1 point ahead of Peter, 1 point behind Sheila, and Clement Freud is still in the lead. And Sheila, your turn to begin. The subject, obligations. Would you talk on that now for just a minute, starting now?
If I'm obliged to. I am always very envious of people who say they're going to do their own thing, because it seems to me that if you are a human being, that is totally impossible while you have other people around you. Because there are obligations which you must fulfill towards your children and your parents. Mind you, I do honestly believe that a lot of people take these too seriously.
Peter Jones has challenged.
A repetition of people.
Yes, there was, I'm afraid, Sheila. So Peter has a correct challenge and a point, and 32.5 seconds obligations starting now.
They're really very much the same as duties. And there is a feeling, I think, abroad in England that...
Yeah, what's your challenge?
Hesitation.
Yes, he hesitated because he was Steve. He said abroad in England, and he's in England at the moment.
That's abroad.
Yes, well, I could see his eyes, flicker, and his thumb seemed to go towards the buzzer, and I thought he was going to buzz it, which was quite right.
To go as
yes,
well.
his nostrils were quivering, everything was going, and I thought I'm a dead duck.
Well, I'm afraid you were, so you hesitated. Yes. He got in, and there are obligations now with you, Kenneth, with 24 seconds left, starting now.
I'll be wearing ribbons down my back.
Sheila Hancock has challenged. Why?
Definite deviation.
Nonsense. I had an obligation to sing that. That's an obligation laid heavy upon me by a man who said, would you do? I'll have ribbons down my back.
But you should have said that first, and then we would have established the fact that you had an obligation. So Sheila has a point and 20 seconds now on obligations, starting now.
As long as they are a pleasure, I think they're a good thing. But when...
Kenneth Williams is challenged.
Obligations of their very nature, the opposite of pleasure. And what do you do for pleasure? Satisfy yourself. An obligation is something you owe to other people. How can it be pleasure?
Oh, you can have pleasure.
I am talking about rubbish. You may be obliged to pay the right fare, but do you get pleasure out of it?
You're obliged to look after your children, but you get pleasure out of it.
Yes, Sheila has given you a very good point.
Quiet. Out. Make yourself
Stop playing to the audience now. You've had two very good points from Sheila and from Peter. Sheila has another point, and there are 16 seconds on obligations, starting now.
And also looking after your mother and your father, I suppose, is necessary and
Clement
enjoyable.
Freud is challenged.
Hesitation.
Yes, I agree, Clement. So you
glad.
have 8 seconds on obligations, starting now.
The greatest obligation one has in this game is not to repeat oneself, not to hesitate, and to keep on the subject.
Kenneth Williams is challenged.
These are not obligations at all. These are rules of the game. Since when have rules been
You
called
have an obligation to yourself to observe the rules. So I disagree with the challenge. Clement keeps the subject, and there are 3 seconds left on obligations, starting now.
In line 4, chapter 2 of the first book of St. Luke.
All right, so Clement was speaking then when the whistle went. He gained the extra point, and he has increased his lead at the end of that round. Kenneth Williams, we now come to you. Kenneth, the subject is outrage. Can you talk on that for 60 seconds, starting now?
I can, because I have been outraged. It was in the blackout in Baker Street, actually. I don't know who done it, and at the identification parade, I said, as the incident transpired that night, I would need to feel them to know them. Oh, he said, I can't have none of that. Our facilities don't extend that far. So I said, well, honour shall not be done this day, and swept out with my head held high and a brave smile perpetually on my face, which was omelette sur le visage. For the benefit of those of you who don't know French, honest soit qui mal y pense, literally translated, means honest sweat killed many a ponce.
And Clement Freud is challenged.
Ah, but I was tripped by my own verbosity. That's what happened there.
Yes, but Clement managed to get in through your verbosity.
Repetition of un.
Yes, I'm afraid there was. So Clement has another point, and there are 20 seconds left on outrage. With you, Clement, starting now.
An occasion which I recall particularly occurred during the Napoleonic War, where an ancestor of mine was molested by a woman of ill repute who grabbed his trousers, undid his pantaloons, removed his socks, and burnt his breeches.
I'm glad the whistle went any further before we got any further with that story.
Trust it wasn't your grandfather. It might account for why he wrote his books.
Napoleonic War.
Napoleonic
would be great.
So, the Napoleonic Wars and that devious outrage, for which he was not challenged, kept going and gained the extra point. Clement has increased his lead. But alas, we have no more time to play just a minute. So let me give you the final score. Peter Jones was just in 4th place, 1 point behind Kenneth Williams, who was 1 point behind Sheila Hancock, who was quite a few points behind this week's winner, Clement Freud. We do hope you've enjoyed this edition of Just a Minute, and will want to tune in again next time. Until then, from all of us here, goodbye.
The chairman of Just a Minute was Nicholas Parsons. The programme was devised by Ian Messiter and produced by Simon Brett.
we present Kenneth Williams, Clement Freud, Peter Jones, and Aimi MacDonald in Just a Minute. And as the minute waltz fades away, here to tell you about it is our chairman, Nicholas Parsons.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Hello and welcome to Just a Minute. And as you just heard, we are delighted to welcome back once again into the fourth chair, or the ladies' chair, Aimi MacDonald, who we hope once again will bring out the best in our three unchivalrous but very clever players and regular male contestants in the game. Once again, I want them all to speak, if they can, for just a minute on some unlikely subject, without hesitation, without repetition, and without deviating from the subject on the card which is in front of me. And let us begin the show with Kenneth Williams. Kenneth, will you start for us this week and talk about... Oh, what a lovely subject to start the show with. Putting a bold face on it. He's rubbing his chest. Kenneth, will you talk on that subject for 60 seconds, starting now?
This really begins with the ancient Britons who did it with the woad all over, and emulated, of course, Boadicea and the other well-known great chieftain, Ethel, who did it with henna in her hair, and when it went red, they all said, "Oh, Ethel Red, the unready." Yeah, that's true, she actually got the name, and she rushed into battle with all of it flown.
Aimi MacDonald has challenged. Why?
Well, deviation, because he said it was a chieftain called Ethel.
Well, yes, he
That's
was
the man.
Well, he was making a little joke, I think, to say how Ethelred became known by that particular name.
Oh,
There might even have been a chieftain called Ethel at that time. I'm not quite sure, Aimi. So I tell you what we'll do is his historical knowledge is superior to all of us. We'll give him the benefit of the doubt about Ethel and say that it was a wrong challenge. Therefore, Kenneth has a point. He keeps the subject. There are 34 seconds left, and you start now.
Make a stand against the Romans. Put a bold face on it, they said to her. So she met him at the Thames, and he said, "They all wear these bowlers because your drains are appalling." And she said, "Yes, because it's an old custom to politely lift your hat when you see a pretty stranger. Is there anything wrong in that?" "Oh, no," he said, and pulled her club off her waist, because she had it swinging there, shoved her one right across the bonks, and they got off. And that's how the whole conquest of Britain under the Romans and the attitudinizing of our tongue...
Peter Jones has challenged.
Repetition of Romans.
Yes, we did have the Romans before, I'm afraid.
What was the timing?
The timing was brilliant on Peter's
Sounded
part,
like
with
about
only
5.5
1.5 seconds to go.
What a... You can see what he's up to, can't you?
Yes, and if
He's
you
trying
could...
to get in on it, isn't he?
Yes,
Like
well,
what?
if you could do the same, you would be doing it, wouldn't you?
Yes, I suppose you're right.
Yes. Well, anyway, there were about 5 he said's in that particular round.
He
He was very
seemed to be
generous
flagging a bit.
Yeah. Peter, you got in very well with only 1.5 seconds to go. You have a point for a correct challenge. You have the subject putting a bold face on it, starting now.
You must try and smile.
Well, those who follow the game will know that after 60 seconds, a whistle is blown by Ian Messiter, which tells us that we have no more time for that round, and whoever is speaking at that moment gains the extra point. Peter Jones, you have got it. You have 2 points. Kenneth has 1, and Clement Freud, you have yet to speak, so will you start the next round?
Good evening.
The subject, last words, not the first ones. That is the subject, curiously enough. Last words, Clement. I must explain to the listeners that laugh came because Kenneth very delicately kissed his ear before he started. It looked like it anyway, just to encourage him. Kenneth, last words. Perhaps he was whispering some last words in your ear. Will you talk on it anyway now for 60 seconds, starting now?
When Voltaire, often known as that great French sage, lay on his deathbed, a priest came to him and said, "Is it time now for you to forsake the devil and all his works?" And Voltaire said, "It seems a bit late in life to start making enemies." I've always felt that those are probably the most intelligent last words that were ever used, much more so than those of W.C. Fields, who wrote, "At least I'm not in Philadelphia," which legend now embraces his tombstone. A head waiter I know had written as his epitaph, "God finally caught his eye." Admirably suited, I feel, to the catering industry. I wish somebody would buzz.
Challenge. challenged you?
Only because it seems to be flagging, hasn't it?
Seemed to be flagging. He absolutely admitted that he was flagging and asked for a challenge. And you came to his rescue. And so you have 7 seconds on last words, Kenneth. And you start now.
Gladstones were all I could do with one of Bellamy's pork pies.
At the end of that round, Kenneth Williams speaking when the whistle went gained the extra point, and you'll be delighted to hear...
I'm in the lead.
Yes.
Oh, it's all happening now. He's coming up to my door and making me some very nice propositions. It's all happening, isn't it? Happening up.
You have 3. You have a lead of 1 over Peter Jones, and you lead of 3 over Clement Freud and Aimi MacDonald, who've yet to score.
Oh,
the programme is only about 5 minutes over, so you've got to really keep it up if you're going to sustain that.
Yes.
Right, Aimi MacDonald, we come to you. Would you now talk on the subject of knickers? I must say that Ian Messiter thinks of the subjects, not me. That's what Ian's thought of. Will you talk about it for 60 seconds, starting now?
There is indeed a very, very wide range of...
Clement Freud is challenged right away.
There were 2 varies.
Yes, but Aimi MacDonald doesn't play as often as you, and she'd only been speaking for 2 seconds, so she gets a bonus point because you challenged. There are 56 seconds for knickers now. Still with you, Aimi, starting now.
I was trying to talk about the range of knickers. We all start off wearing nappies, don't we? And then we graduate to long blue ones, navy blue preferably.
Clement Freud is challenged.
No, that was not repetition, because I said navy blue the second time.
You did say navy blue the second time. Let's hear what Clement's challenge is, Clement.
And you said blue the first time.
And you said blue the first time.
Which sort of makes 2 blues.
It does make it. And you were getting it. It's just a bit...
Blue on that subject is knickers, isn't it? I don't know.
She was being a bit too blue for just a minute.
Yes, but normally you award her an extra point.
I'm at liberty to award an extra point if I feel so inclined. It's a very nice position to be in.
Well, it certainly is, yes.
Yeah. But on this occasion, I'm going to allow Clement Freud to have his repetition of blue because
Power corrupts, you know.
And Aimi MacDonald corrupts even more. It's delightful. Aimi, Clement, you have a correct challenge. You see where my thoughts are?
If you get us mixed up, I'm the one who's got less hair.
Not on your chin, though.
I don't know.
I say, let's get on with the programme. I don't wish to know that. Kindly leave the auditorium. Right, Clement Freud, you have 47 seconds on knickers, starting now.
One of the most extraordinary things about English audiences is that you only have to say knickers to them, and they roll about in helpless mirth. This has ever amazed me, because knickers is a very ordinary, stupid, boring word for a garment which, while it may be necessary...
Aimi MacDonald has challenged.
Repetition, he said knickers twice.
But knickers is the subject on the cover. And you haven't played it very often. No, of course. Bad luck, Aimi. Well, there we are. No, but do remember in future, you are allowed to repeat the subject on the card.
Yes, of course.
So we will ignore the challenge because you haven't been back with us for quite a time. Clement...
Are you coming again fairly soon, Aimi, do you think?
28 seconds for you, Clement Freud, on knickers, starting now.
Knickers is occasionally used as a pet name for people called Nicholas, and indeed our beloved chairman used to be called Knickers when a small boy. I went to school with him for some extraordinary reason because we lived fairly close.
Kenneth Williams is...
Deviation, what's his going to school with you got to do with knickers?
He's going to talk about my Nicholas.
Well, it's got quite a bit to do with him getting points.
He's established that there was
the old school tie network. We haven't got a chance to look at
it. No, he clearly, in my mind, established a connection between Knickers and Nicholas Parsons. So he was not deviating
You
from
admit then, publicly, do you, and on the air, to being called Knickers?
Called Nicholas.
Nicholas Parsons now, do we?
Nicholas.
Nicholas.
When he lost them, he was called Nicholas.
Oh, Nicholas.
Because I didn't have any.
I didn't know this. This is another story. I've never heard that you had no knickers.
Clement, Freud, you should listen to what the others say in the show, Kenneth. It might help you to get more points. This is what Clement was going on about, actually.
Oh, I beg you. I do withdraw. I withdraw my allegations. I'm so sorry.
They weren't allegations. They were great fun. I disagree with the challenge. Clement has a point. 12 seconds on Knickers, Clement, starting now.
In the early part of this century, one of the commonest crimes was for men to put a piece of looking glass into the sole of their shoe and slide it under ladies who were walking past. And by looking down, they were able...
Such devious ideas kept Clement Freud going until the whistle went. Gained the extra point. I know, but it's still a devious idea, isn't it? It may be true.
The first idea might have been devious. After that, it was repetition.
Oh, don't be so difficult, Clement. You have now gone into the lead alongside Kenneth Williams. Kenneth, will you begin? The subject is making friends. Can you talk to us about that now for 60 seconds, starting now?
What is the meaning, the real thing behind a relationship whereby you can pour it all out, chaff and grain together, knowing that a faithful
Aimi MacDonald is challenged. Why?
Well, it's sort of cheating, really, isn't it? I mean, he's drawing out all these words so that it takes fewer words to speak longer time. You know what I mean?
Yes, and he does it every week, you know.
Kenneth!
That Aimi doesn't come here very often.
I don't care if she comes in often or she comes in at all.
Kenneth! I'll send you back to King's Cross a minute. Kenneth, you are not going to...
You should never have had women on this programme, never.
Kenneth!
Trouble endlessly, don't they, Clement?
Kenneth!
We never have any women on this side.
No, thank you.
We managed very well indeed.
You are not going to lose the subject.
Oh, good.
But I was going to say to you...
You want to give Aimi a point?
What? No. I
don't want to give Aimi a point.
Clement Freud, you're getting worse than Kenneth Williams. I was about to say that if you do go any further, any slower than that, I will interpret it as hesitation or even deviation. And I'm just warning you that you are going as slow as you could possibly go. You have 43 seconds to continue at that speed on making friends, starting now.
Well, now it's ruined me because I've lost all my flow.
Your flow? I've never seen so much flow. It was flowing. What was your challenge? Clement challenged you.
Deviation.
No, he wasn't devious. He has another point. He was going on making friends. He made a friend with me then. 40 seconds on making friends, Kenneth, starting now.
Stretch out your hand, and a faithful one will take it in return and give what is worth giving, and with a breath of kindness blow all evil thought away and say, here is my one true love, who came from the nether regions, least expected but most wanted and desired. And I clasped him in my arms and like a brother wept and said, this is the greatest moment of all. And we...
Well, Winston Churchill was then speaking when the whistle went. And so he gained an extra point for Kenneth Williams, who has now increased his lead at the end of that round. Clement Freud, will you begin the next round? From making friends, we have making enemies. Can you talk on that subject for 60 seconds, starting now?
I find it so incredibly difficult to make enemies that the only way I've managed is to produce them myself. I buy quite a lot of rubber and string and bits of plank, and I create my own enemies. I make their legs and tie them together at the top with straw, and then using asbestos and plaster of Paris, I fashion a body upon which I put a neck followed by a head. Using my thumb and forefinger, I indent the plastic.
Aimi MacDonald is challenged. Why?
Deviation? I don't know what. He's not talking about making enemies.
No, they're inanimate enemies. I mean, enemies, one assumes. You can't.
Enemies.
Why?
They're refugees. They're going to hate me.
That's only in your fantasy, because an inanimate object is incapable of hate. You've admitted it. I agree with Amy's challenge. Making enemies is now with you, Aimi, with 27 seconds to go, starting now.
It is obviously much easier to make enemies than it is to make friends. All you have to do really is walk up to somebody and stick your tongue out to say something rude, and immediately you've got one of those things.
Clement Freud is challenged. Yes, stuck her tongue out and there we... Yes, you look for an enemy and Clement Freud challenged. There are 12 seconds on making enemies now, Clement, starting now.
Go up to almost anyone and say, "You foul-mouthed, halitosis swine, you dungeon, dirty, grubby, piggy."
Peter's challenge came in just before the whistle. What is it,
He
Peter?
hesitated. If it had been another few seconds, he wouldn't have been able to say anything.
Peter, well tried. There was only half a second to go, but if you try too hard, I'm afraid all that happens is the person you are competing against gets another point, alas, because it was an incorrect challenge. So at the end of that round, Clement Freud was speaking when the whistle went. He has increased his position in second place, but Kenneth Williams is still in the lead, and Peter Jones, your turn to begin. Conkers. That is the subject. Will you talk on it now for just a minute, starting now?
The fruit of the horse chestnut. What delightful things they are. Hard, round, and the colour of mahogany.
Clement Freud is challenged.
Deviation, they're not round.
Well, they're not
yes.
symmetrically round, but they are of a round shape, as opposed to being square. I would never describe a Conker as square or rectangular or rhomboid. I would say, if I was trying to keep going in just a minute colloquially, I would say it was round.
You would.
I would.
What school did you go? Oh.
So that makes...
If you like,
that makes
if
two
you
of you.
doubt,
No, we don't. Let's get on with it.
I can always put it to the audience. I never come to the final judge. No, you don't wish to. All right, Peter. Conkers is still with you, and there are 52 seconds to go, starting now.
They look good enough to eat, but they don't taste very nice. And they don't smell either. You can, however, play a game with them. You pierce a hole through from the bottom to the top, or vice versa, thread some string through, and tie a knot. Then, if you can find an adjacent small boy with the same equipment, you can stand facing each other and dash away at each other's conkers. Several times.
Kenneth Williams is challenged.
Of course I'm challenging. What's he talking about? Why, half this audience is appalled. You're going to find adjacent small boys. What's an adjacent small boy?
Have you ever played
an adjacent small boy? If you can find an adjacent small boy...
Well, near the tree.
Have you never played Conkers?
I'm not discussing that.
You can't.
But what is your
adjacent small boys?
You can't play it with a boy who isn't adjacent.
Absolutely.
Because you can't reach.
Why, if this is a valid game, why can't you play it with someone your own age? Going about looking for adjacent small boys for. I accuse you of deviation.
All right, you've now come out with your challenge. You've accused him of deviation. To my mind, he was not deviating from the subject of Conkers. The small boy that he was going to play with had to be adjacent to him, and that was what, in my mind, he was wishing to establish. And so we continue with you, Peter, and there are 23 seconds left on Conkers, starting now.
And the outside is very prickly, which reminds me of a number of people I know.
Kenneth Williams is challenged.
Well, the outside of a conker ain't prickly at all. He's just said it's smooth and round. Now he's gone back on it all
The
and said
outside
it's prickly.
cover is prickly.
No, actually, Peter, I think I've got to be fair here. The outside cover of the
Why
Conker...
start being fair at this point?
You almost deserve a bonus point for that, Peter. The Conker is, to my mind, the article inside, that rounded article which is brown, and the covering, the horse chestnut green, is the spiky bit. Therefore, we're not on Conkers. I agree with Kenneth's challenge. You have 17 seconds, Kenneth. Conkers starting now.
The word, of course, has come to mean balmy. They say he's stark raving conkers. And this now...
Peter Jones has challenged.
No, they say bonkers. They don't say conkers.
All right. Kenneth Williams is now giving an impression of someone who's start raving bonkers. Peter Jones has a correct challenge and a point, and Conkers is back with you 10 seconds starting now.
And it is, of course, something that people do.
Clement Freud is challenged.
Repetition of course.
You rotten thing, you.
I do.
I didn't say of course.
Yes, you did.
You
did.
haven't
Yes,
said of
You
course.
definitely did, I'm afraid. And I have to be fair within the rules of the game. You've said it once, and if he wishes to challenge on it, then I have to award him a point and tell him he has 7 seconds on Conkers. Clement, starting now.
When I was 10 years old, I had a fiver, which meant to conquer, which had conquished, or vanquished, or won.
Clement Freud was then speaking when the whistle went, so he has taken the lead at the end of that round. Kenneth Williams, your turn to begin. Roundabouts. Can you talk on that one for 60 seconds, starting now?
I adore them, and when I get on the kind, which is scooter-like in their motion, you have to put one hand down to almost propel the entire machine, so to speak, which are in certain children's playgrounds. I adore it, the adrenaline flows.
Aimi MacDonald is challenged.
He's just said I adore twice.
Yes, I'm afraid you did, Kenneth. So, Aimi...
Sharp, straight out the knife box.
So, Aimi, your sharp challenge gained you a point on the subject, and there are 44 seconds on Roundabouts, starting now.
I agree with Kenneth. They're absolutely fantastic. You get on and whiz round until you're absolutely dizzy and you can't go around.
Clement Freud is challenged.
Repetition of absolutely.
Yes, but she was giving an impression of being absolutely dizzy, and she was absolutely dizzy as she did it, so
she gets
as
a
her...
point.
What's that?
So she gets a point.
I'll put it to the audience. It's the last round. We have so little time left to play this game. Do you think that I should be generous to Aimi because she doesn't play as much as the others, or do you think I should be fair to Clement and give him the point? If you think Clement should have the point, will you cheer? And if you think Aimi, will you boo? And will you all do it together now? Aimi, they're booing you. You've got a point from them. Roundabouts is
Nicholas, did you go to school with Aimi MacDonald?
No, I was just...
I've got a point.
You got a point from the
They
audience.
booed.
Yes, I said if they boo, we'll give it to Aimi MacDonald. I even was generous to Clement, said they can cheer for him for once instead of booing him.
Oh, they were booing for Clement.
No, they were booing for you to have a point. So you have a point, and I wasn't at school with Aimi, alas. I'm not quite as young as she is. Aimi, you have 35 points. 35, thank you. 35 seconds for Roundabouts, starting now. Clement Freud is challenged.
Hesitation.
All right, I must be fair this time. Clement, you have 3 seconds on Roundabouts, starting now.
I was once told that what I lost on the swings I would make up on the roundabouts. And having gone without a great deal
Peter Jones is challenged.
Hesitation.
Yes, Peter, you have Roundabouts now, and there are 26 seconds left, starting now.
I like them when they have horses and bits of tubular brass going up and down and a steam organ. That always makes them much more attractive in my mind. And you can get on a swing, perhaps, which goes right out, centrifugal force, causing it to go almost horizontal over the heads of the gaping crowds at the fairground.
Aimi MacDonald is challenged.
Deviation, he stopped talking about roundabouts, he's talking about hobby horses.
But they're roundabouts at the fair.
With swings on, you see.
You see, I mean, if you're at the fair, you always refer to everywhere as a swing or a...
there's terraplane things.
Yes,
they're
or the rockets,
yes,
or the
round.
Dodgem cars. They're all roundabouts.
Oh,
you
yes,
see, Aimi.
definitely.
It was well tried. You're up to the boys' games. Only 3 seconds to go, and you nearly got in, but not quite. A wrong challenge. Peter, you have another point. Roundabouts, 3 seconds, starting now.
When I was a boy, I wanted to collect money on these things.
Well, as I said earlier, I'm afraid this would have to be the last round in this game of Just a Minute. So let me now give you the final score. Aimi MacDonald was only just in 4th place, 1 point behind Kenneth Williams, who was in 3rd place. One time he was our leader, but he wasn't very far behind Clement Freud, who was 1 point behind this week's winner, Peter Jones. We do hope you've enjoyed this edition of Just a Minute. From all of us here, goodbye.
The chairman of Just a Minute was Nicholas Parsons. The programme was devised by Ian Messiter and produced by David Hatch.
we present Kenneth Williams, Clement Freud, Peter Jones and Andre Merry in Just a Minute. And as the minute waltz fades away, here to tell you about it is our chairman, Nicholas Parsons.
Thank you. Thank you very much indeed. Hello and welcome to Just a Minute. Well, once again, we have 4 experienced players of the game, and I'm going to ask them to speak if they can for just 1 minute on some unlikely subject, without, of course, hesitation, repetition, or deviating from the subject which is written on the card in front of me. And again, according to how well they do it, they will gain points, or their opponents will. And let us begin the show this week with Clement Freud. Clement, would you talk to us on what they say about me? That's the subject that Ian Messett has thought of. Will you talk on it for 60 seconds, starting now?
I've heard people say incredibly nice things about do, re, fa, si, la, ti, and the first note again. But what they say about me is altogether nicer. The most sonorous and melodious note in the entire scale of the musical world. Me is...
Andre Merry has challenged.
Hesitation.
Yes. Andre, I agree with the challenge. You gain a point, and you have 37 seconds left to talk on what they say about me, starting now.
I'm really much too modest to tell you, but this was...
Kenneth Williams has challenged.
Complete lie. She's not modest at all, sitting there showing... the programme to do is ludicrous deviation, absolute deviation, to sit on a programme, talking your head off, and then say I'm too modest to talk about it. Absolute deviation.
Kenneth has a point, so he takes over the subject. 35 seconds to go. What they say about me, Kenneth, starting now.
Well, some of the things have been disgraceful, and I very nearly had a libel action over one person who put in prison.
Clement Freud has challenged.
If they say something, it's a slander action, not a libel action. So it's deviation.
Oh, yeah.
A clever challenge gains you a point, Clement, and the subject, and there are 27 seconds on what they say about me, starting now.
What they say about me is that there's the man who doesn't like cigarettes, which is very strange because it shows a sort of anarchy or lack of patriotism. If you buy a packet of tobacco, you will find on it an endorsement saying that the company is providing its products by appointment to Her Royal Highness.
Andre Merry challenged.
Nothing to do with him. It's all to do with cigarettes. It's deviation.
Yes, I think he's got away from what they say about me onto what they say about cigarettes and tobacco. Yes, I would agree that is a deviation, and therefore I agree with your challenge, Andre. You have 4 seconds on what they say about me, starting now.
Being an actress of many years standing and sitting as I am at the moment, I remember everything.
Well, as you know, 60 seconds, as you know, when the whistle goes, it tells us that 60 seconds is up, and whoever is speaking at that moment gains an extra point. On this occasion, it was Andre Merry, who has, of course, a commanding lead at the end of that round. Kenneth Williams, will you begin the next round? Holding my own. Would you talk on that subject? Would you talk on that subject for 60 seconds, starting now?
It's better to hold your own rather than anybody else's. He is liable in this world to run into trouble. It is what Kipling means when he says to keep yours when all around are losing theirs. And what the other bloke, Eliot, meant when he said to keep one's countenance and remain self-possessed. Now, of course, it can be said to be...
Clement Freud challenge first, then.
Well, I was trying to think.
I know you were. We saw it.
He was trying to think.
Hesitation. Yes, if you try to think in this game, you have had it. And 21 seconds left, holding my own, starting now.
Eating a plate of asparagus the other day, I noticed the lady wearing a purple dress sitting across me at the table grasped the stalk.
Kenneth Williams challenged.
She was sitting across him?
Yes, I thought that was...
He was eating spaghetti with her across him. I think he had a little job with the spaghetti.
Well, I would agree. If she was sitting across him and he was eating spaghetti, I think it's the most devious situation I've ever heard of.
I think he got...
In fact, the more I think about it, the more devious it becomes. And I give unreservedly the point and the subject to Kenneth Williams with 13 seconds to go, holding my own, Kenneth, starting now.
I think this unquestionably refers to pride of ownership. Having once established that you've got it, nobody else should lay their hands on it. And...
Clement Freud challenge.
Hesitation.
Well, I was...
yes, I know you hesitated because you knew you'd said on it twice.
I knew that, that's true.
You thought, will they challenge me on such a small word? And they let you get away with it, and then you hesitated, and Clement got in. There are 3 seconds to go, Clement, holding my own, starting now.
Bismarck herrings and cucumbers.
I imagine he was going to say, do not hold their own, they come back with great rapidity. Clement Freud, you were speaking then when the whistle went, so you gained the extra point, you gained other points in the round, you've now gone to a lead of 1 over Andre Melly at the end of the round. Peter Jones, your turn to talk. We're going to hear from you. How lovely. Peter, the subject is being interrupted, which hasn't happened to you yet. But would you talk on the subject for 60 seconds, starting now?
Well, if you don't say anything, of course, you're never interrupted. But it's something that I've not had much experience of because I was taught not to interrupt when I was a child and consequently didn't interrupt other people. Now, the problem is, and I do hope somebody will interrupt because I haven't got very much to say on this subject.
Andre Melly has helped you.
Out of love and friendship.
Well, what is your challenge?
Because he said he hadn't much to say on the subject, so it was deviation.
It doesn't matter if he hasn't much to say on the subject. He's still got to keep going. That is not a correct challenge. He was not being devious. He kept going, even though he requested a challenge. So, Peter, you have a point for an incorrect challenge, and there are 40 seconds on being interrupted starting now.
Yes, well, the great thing is to get going at a tremendous lick. Throw in a few cliches like getting your back to the wall and really examining every avenue and turning over every stone, if you can.
Andre Melly has challenged.
2 everys.
I agree with your challenge this time. You have 27 seconds being interrupted starting now.
Being interrupted is how you lose your thread, and if there's one thing you don't want to mislay, it's that. Because you feel a complete Charlie stuck there, umming and eyeing, trying to think what to say next. This subject is the kind of thing that you're given on Just a Minute, so that other people will interrupt you, and the game can go on, and sometimes, of course, nobody does, which seems to be happening at the moment. So...
Well, on that subject, which they all seem to find difficult, 2 didn't bother to challenge, didn't want to come in, and Peter tried to get rid of it, and Andre did as well. Andre had it when the whistle went, so she gained the extra point. She's taken the lead again over Clement Freud, and we'd like you to begin the next round, and the subject is the origin of my name. Would you like to talk on that subject for just 1 minute, starting now?
The origin of my name, I think, comes from the French and means a mess, melee, a sort of fight or scrum, a bit of a squabble, that kind of thing. But on the other hand, we were Italian-Swiss, so perhaps it's nothing to do with that at all. Andre I got because I have 2 elder brothers, one called George, the other Bill, and my parents felt that Fred or Bert was going a bit too far and they better get a bit flowery, so they decided on the Christian name, which I now hold. The origin...
Clement Freud is challenged.
Deviation.
Why?
You don't hold Christian names. You can hold your own, we've seen. I think we're overdoing this metaphor.
This,
I think you can. You can hold it. You can even.
I would say it's reporting the sort of type of English that you speak. If you say.
I suppose if you are a Swiss Italian.
Yes, Swiss Italian with a French name, you might well say the Christian name I hold is Andre. No, I think you could actually say that. So, Andre, we will give you the benefit of the doubt. You keep the subject having gained a point, and there are 26 seconds on the origin of my name, starting now.
The father of my great-grandfather, Bruce.
Clement Freud is challenged.
2 fathers.
No, one was grandfather.
One was great-grandfather.
Great-grandfather, and the other one the father of my great-grandfather. Andre, you have another point for an incorrect challenge, and there are 23 seconds on the origin of my name, starting now.
Was a Swiss watchmaker who came...
Clement Freud is challenged again.
We've already had
the Swiss, so Clement, you get the subject this time. 20 seconds on the origin of my name, starting now.
Clement is an ancient Roman name, and many popes for this same...
Peter Jones is challenged. Hesitation. There are 12.5 seconds on the origin of my name, Peter, starting now.
I don't really know the origin of it, but it isn't very original. I do know that. Because Joneses are extremely common. The name is, at least all over Wales and a lot of England and America as well. And Peter, of course, also Roman.
Was then talking on the origin of his name when the whistle went. He gained an extra point. He's now equal in third place with Kenneth Williams. They're both trailing behind Clement Freud, who is now 2 points behind our leader, who is still Andre Melly. And Clement Freud, your turn to begin. Teddy bears. Can you, while holding your own, talk on teddy bears for 60 seconds, starting now?
When I was young, there was a song called The Teddy Bear's Picnic, which went, if you go down to the woods tonight, you're in for a great surprise. Then it had the first line all over again, which I can't give you because I've already said it.
Peter Jones has challenged.
Deviation. It's if you go down to the woods today. It's not tonight.
That's
tonight
right.
It would be quite a different matter.
And also... You're sure of a big surprise. Right. You have a correct challenge, Peter, so you have 46 seconds left now on teddy bears, starting now.
They're warm, cuddly things, and they're always stuffed. And children like to have them cozy in bed, you know, when they go to sleep, because it gives them a warm feeling of being...
Clement Freud is challenged.
2 worms.
Yes, I'm afraid so, Peter. So there are 35 seconds left on teddy bears with you, Clement, starting now.
I had a teddy bear myself when small who was called Friggy, which was short for an ice bear. He was black with a white nose and red flippers. I'm not at all sure for the reason, but in my day...
Andre Melly is challenged.
No hesitation.
Yes, I think there was.
Yes.
And I would agree. He who hesitates is lost in this game. 19 seconds left for teddy bears with you, Andre, starting now.
You could say, in a manner of speaking, that Clement Freud was one and Nicholas Parsons was not, if you know what I mean. Little girls...
Clement Freud is challenged.
I don't know what you mean.
No. And I'm sure I don't know what you mean.
A teddy bear.
Oh. Well, so your challenge is deviation?
Obviously.
Yes. So you don't know what you mean, so it's devious.
Teddy
but
bear,
she was keeping going on the subject, even though it didn't make sense.
It made a lot of sense. Ladies will all know.
All right, then. Once again, I will call on our audience. If you agree with Clement's challenge, will you cheer? And if you disagree, will you boo? And will you all do it together now? Well, obviously, they seem to think that Clement Freud is like a teddy bear, and I'm not like a teddy bear, but whatever that means, I don't know. But, Andre, they decided you weren't deviating from the subject, so you keep it, and you have 9.5 seconds left. Teddy bear starting now.
Little girls of 4 have them, teddy bears, that is, and sometimes large film stars of 24 also like them, which I always think is a bit peculiar,
Andre Melly kept going on the subject until the end, so the whistle went. She gained the extra point, and she's increased her lead at the end of that round. Kenneth Williams, will you begin the next round? The subject, Alexander the Great. So from teddy bears, we move into history, and would you talk on that subject for just 1 minute, starting now?
Well, I believe he was a very sulky young man and went right off at his dad because he said he was drunk as a lord one night. And of course he was the king, Philip. He was the second, wasn't he, of Macedonia. And then he became the great conqueror, rushing right through Asia Minor and Bactria and the whole, of course, of India. And was very vain, wanted to be thought of always youthful, so shaved and made it fashionable to be beardless, unlike my eminent friend, who I shall not name, but leave to you to guess.
Peter Jones, a challenger.
He's being very devious because he's talking about Clement Freud and not Alexander the Great.
Yeah, but he was comparing him to Alexander the Great, which is very flattering for Clement Freud.
I don't think there is any comparison. I don't think he could compare.
No, well, he tried to, and he didn't therefore deviate from the subject on the card, Alexander the Great. So he keeps the subject. There are 19 seconds left, starting now.
And then he had this terrible fever and he died at only 33, having married this Persian.
Peter Jones, a challenge.
Is this Alexander the Great?
Well, do you think it's Clement Freud then?
We sometimes think it is, yes. All right, so I give you a point for a very witty challenge, which was completely nothing to do with the programme. And let Kenneth carry on with 13 seconds to go on the subject, starting now.
The greatest teacher of the Alexandrian method once pandiculated all over me, and I was...
You don't believe he did panticulate all over him?
Definitely not.
Oh, yes.
On the contrary, he did. Pandiculate is to yawn, Clement, and that's what he did all over me.
What, Alexander the Great?
No, I said a teacher. Weren't you listening to what I said?
We were listening, but we had difficulty.
Am I wasting my time sitting here? I've come all the way from King's Cross. I mean, I've come here at great expense. And I do think I should be treated with respect.
Yeah, I'm sorry, you're getting very emotional now,
yes.
Kenneth.
Well, do I keep the subject or lose it or what? I mean...
How...
well, he admits he wasn't talking about Alexander the Great.
No. On the subject of, you can perfectly reasonably mention a teacher, can't you, apropos the subject you're discussing?
And you said the teacher pandiculated.
Well, he gives his name to the Alexandrian couplets, doesn't he? Good gracious. I mean, everything's derivative, isn't it? I mean, good gracious, I mean, it's ridiculous. I mean, I can't sit here being insulted.
I think you made a very good case for yourself, Kenneth, and we'll give you the benefit of the doubt. And 6 seconds left on Alexander the Great, starting now.
When he expired, there began the most frightful row over the dividing up of his territory, but most of it went to the relatively clear part.
So, Kenneth Williams started with Alexander the Great, finished with Alexander the Great, and the challenges which were incorrect throughout the round gained him a number of points, but he's still safely in third place. And Peter Jones, your turn to begin, and the subject is the odd job man. Would you talk on that one for 60 seconds, starting now?
Well, that's really me in our neighbourhood, because it's quite hopeless trying to get anyone else to come and do anything. Even if you want a tap changing, it's very dangerous unless you've got an estimate. And they won't really do it terribly well, and they... sorry.
Clement Freud is challenged.
Hesitation, among other things.
Among other things, hesitation's enough. Clement Freud, there are 43 seconds on the odd job man, starting now.
There was a time when an odd job man was essential to one's life, because there were so many small things to be done about a house. But in this specialist age in which we live, the creature has become virtually extinct. What was once an odd job man is now a specialist window cleaner. An expert...
Andre Melly has challenged.
Hesitation.
I agree, Andre, and you have 14 seconds on the odd job man, starting now.
We used to have a wonderful one, a Mr. Beasley. He could fix it, stick it up, pull it down, anything you wanted, but he took up furniture removing as a full-time occupation, and we've never found his like again. It's something...
The unsolicited plugs that some people get on our programme. Dear Mr. Beasley, his business will go up after this show, won't it? Andre, you've increased your lead at the end of that round. You've got a very commanding lead, and we'd like you to begin the next round. The subject is babysitting. Would you talk on that one for just a minute, starting now?
Apart from the oldest profession in the world, this is one of the few jobs left to women which isn't taxable. Young people bring their boyfriends, and the old ones have got their knitting. They get free food, transport laid on, very little to do, as the children usually don't wake up, and it is altogether something that is quite a good job to take.
Clement Freud is challenged.
The repetition of jobs.
Yes, indeed. So, Clement, you now have 36 seconds on babysitting, starting now.
This is one of the very worst things you can do to a baby, because it squashes the child. If you find it essential to sit upon an infant, I suggest you do it with your legs wide apart, missing the head and perhaps perching on the chest, the knees.
Was challenged.
Hesitation.
Yes, I think his devious thoughts were distressing him so much he paused. Kenneth, I agree with your challenge, and there are 16 seconds on babysitting starting now.
Well, I think the gift there is occupational hazardry, because the idea being to...
Clement Freud is challenged.
Deviation.
Why?
Occupational hazardry cannot be a gift. Whatever it is.
Whatever it is, yes. I'm not even sure that it is anything.
Quite right. He's got a perfectly genuine challenge.
I know it's a perfectly genuine challenge.
Yes, it's a genuine challenge.
Yes, and he has a point, and he has 9 seconds on babysitting starting now.
One used to pay 12 shillings and sixpence an hour, which has now been amended to 60p for 45 minutes.
Clement Freud, you have moved up on Andre Melly at the end of that round, and the other two are still trailing. And Clement Freud, will you begin the next round? The subject is cornography. Clement Freud, will you talk on cornography for 60 seconds, starting now?
Cornography could well be the art of sweet corn, either the growing of it or the consumption thereof. On the other hand, unlike pornography, cornography may be the science of writing corny literature, or boring couplets, ribald jokes, stupid messages on lavatory walls. And I'm not really prepared to go into this any longer.
Kenneth Williams challenge.
Well, I'll have a go if he not goes.
Even without a challenge, I think the audience decided you should have a go. All right, so, Kenneth, you have the subject, and there are 33 seconds on cornography starting now.
Well, taking the definition from the lips of my learned friend Clement Freud, because I had not, I must perforce admit, heard this word before, and thought, when it was first mentioned, that someone was having me on. What?
Well, Clement Freud is challenged.
Deviation, I've just said it 3 times.
So you must have heard the word before, because Clement Freud has just said it 3 times. Now, that's one of those clever challenges, because what he meant was he had not heard the word before this program started.
He should have said that.
But he conveyed it. His look to me conveyed he was referring to the fact before the program started he had not heard the word. I think the audience would agree with that, wouldn't you? Yes.
They agree with
Cornography is still with you, Clement Freud. With Kenneth Williams, cornography, and there are 22 seconds left starting now.
A good example would be, the violet hush of evening was descending as Violet Hush drove me along Sunset Boulevard.
Clement Freud is challenged.
2 ushers.
Oh, you're allowed. It's proper name.
You see how he works the audience up like a demagogue? There's no such rule as a proper name, and you all clap because you think... He just thought of that point, and you say, oh, good old Kenneth, isn't he clever? He's clever to get you going. But I have to be fair, and I mustn't be swayed by your partisanship and your bias. Clement Freud, you have a point for 2 ushers. And you have 13 seconds on cornography starting now.
Cornographically speaking, cornography is, as an art form, about the same as...
Well, for those of you who haven't already anticipated the fact, and for those of you who watch their clocks at home, will know that we have no more time to play just a minute, so I have to give you the final score. But just to let you know of the ones who were less fortunate, Peter Jones finished in 4th place, a little way behind Kenneth Williams, who finished in a good, strong 3rd place behind Clement Freud. But Clement Freud was 2 points behind this week's winner, Andre Melly. I hope you've enjoyed this edition of Just a Minute, and will want to tune in again next time. Until then, from all of us here, goodbye.
The
chairman of Just a Minute was Nicholas Parsons. The programme was devised by Ian Messiter and produced by Simon Brett. Present Kenneth Williams, Clement Freud, Peter Jones and Sheila Hancock in Just a Minute. And as the minute waltz fades away, here to tell you about it is our chairman, Nicholas Parsons.
Thank you very much. Hello and welcome to Just a Minute. And as you've just heard, we welcome back to take the fourth chair, or the ladies' chair as sometimes referred to, Sheila Hancock. Sheila once again is going to pit her wits and knowledge and ability against our three regular male competitors of Just a Minute. And they're going to try and speak, if they can, for 60 seconds on some unlikely subject without hesitation, without repetition, and without deviating from the subject on the card. So let us begin the show this week with Kenneth Williams. Kenneth, can you talk about traumatic experiences for 60 seconds, starting now?
It is extraordinary how this clinical word has now crept into what we all know as current usage. It was, strictly speaking, the province of doctors that this word was in before, but now...
Sheila Hancock has challenged you.
Repetition of word?
Yes, we've had 2 words, I'm afraid, Kenneth. So I agree with Sheila's challenge for repetition, so she gets a point, and the subject of traumatic experiences, and there are 44 seconds left, Sheila, starting now.
The first, and I suppose one of the greatest traumatic experiences you can have, is birth. What a terrible shock it must be to come out of all that coziness into this great big frightening world. And it's no surprise that you spend the rest of your life in a state of total shock. And you finish up with another traumatic experience, which is death, which must be equally startling when you wake up and find yourself wherever you do after that.
Clement Freud is challenged.
Deviation.
Why?
It hasn't been proved that you wake up after death.
Hasn't been proved that you don't, though.
Ah, very good point.
I think you can assume that death is a shock from which few people recover.
Who asked you to put your oar in?
You don't. Nobody sits around waiting to be invited in this game.
No,
otherwise,
I quite agree, Peter.
It would be the Kenneth Williams half hour.
Sheila, I disagree with Clement's challenge, so you gain a point for a wrong challenge. You keep the subject, and there are 19 seconds left on traumatic experiences, starting now.
Another pretty startling one is the first time...
Clement Freud is challenged.
Repetition is startling.
Yes, you did have startling ones before. Yes, I'm afraid so, Sheila. There are now 12 seconds. I'm sorry. There are now 16 seconds left on traumatic experiences with you, Clement, starting now.
It is very strange that few people realize traumatic experience comes from the German Traum, a dream. So in fact, traumatic experiences are dreamlike occasions.
Kenneth Williams is challenged.
Dream twice.
Dreamlike?
No, he didn't say... He just said dreamlike then. And the word was dream before.
I know what he's doing. It's
I didn't hear you.
He said the word's
Kenneth.
derived from the German, which means dream,
No.
and it means the shock when you're in your dream-like state. So he said dream twice.
What did you say? You didn't. What did you say, Clement, then?
Dreamlike. It's not dream.
Dreamlike. I'm going to ask the audience. I don't know. Would you...
Oh, don't ask the audience.
Why not?
No point.
But when we have an impossible or difficult decision to make...
That's not an important... This should be a simple decision for a chairman to make. A man says dream, and then he says dreamlike.
Yes, well, that's all right.
I would have said it's absolutely all right.
No, the word's not hyphenated. So therefore, the word dream occurs twice in speech, and therefore it's against the rules, and I have the subject.
In other words, you want the subject, Kenneth, but dreamlike is a word, so Clement Freud has a point for an incorrect challenge, and there are 4 seconds left, starting now.
Many other words like traumatic experience.
Peter Jones is challenged.
Repetition of like.
Oh, yes!
Well, if he didn't repeat dream, he must have repeated like. No. If there's no like.
and dreamlike.
Now, I know it's a very difficult decision, and I know you've got laryngitis, and I know you're afraid you may get a lot of letters, but it is unquestionably my point. And I am in the lead.
You do see, Peter, even if you don't play it like Kenneth Williams, it's good to try and play it like Kenneth, and you do get some nice...
You should stick up for yourself more, Peter.
Well,
They do you down in this game.
Yes, I know they do. Yes, I've had about as much as I can stand, Sheila. I don't mind telling you.
I'm afraid, Peter, as much as we appreciated your panache there, he didn't repeat the word like. It was dreamlike.
He didn't repeat the word like?
No. So he has a point, I'm afraid. You tried very hard, there's only 1 second to go. With you, Clement Freud, 1 second to go, starting now.
Hello there.
Well, in spite of being attacked on all sides, Clement Freud kept going successfully to speak when the whistle went. And as you know by now, when the whistle goes, it tells us that 60 seconds is up, and at that particular moment, whoever is speaking gains an extra point. Clement Freud is now definitely in the lead. And Peter Jones, would you go on the next round, please? And the subject is pot-pourri. Would you talk on that? Starting... What?
The T is actually pronounced.
Is it?
Yes.
Well, if you want to, we can have a potpourri.
That's it.
Potpourri.
Now the
Potpourri.
audience knows.
What do you say, Clement Freud?
Good evening.
No. How do you pronounce it, Kenneth?
I'm not concerned, not unconcerned.
How do you pronounce it, Sheila?
Well, I think it can either be potpourri or potpourri.
Yes, exactly. Well said. And exactly what I was doing. Potpourri.
How would you like me to pronounce it? I mean, I'm the one that's got to talk about it. When you've decided, you tell me how...
I will put it to the audience. How would you like Peter to pronounce it? The audience want a potpourri.
Ignorant
Potpourri,
lot.
yes.
Ignorant
No,
lot.
they're not. That's quite right.
Your French would say potpourri. But the audience, being English, want a potpourri from you.
Yes.
For 60 seconds, starting now.
Well, it's something that I associate with old English cottages and gardens with hollyhocks and roses round the door and pansies and sweet William and old flowers.
I got that reference. Pansies and Sweet William. I'm not going to sit here and take that lying down. That's what he meant about earlier on about he'd had enough. That's what he meant. That's his comeback, isn't it? And the crafty comeback, he's gone red. Look at him. Yeah.
Nothing to conceal.
You should know Peter hasn't the slightest idea what you're talking about.
Were you challenged for repetition of old?
No, I realise I was wrong challenge. I withdraw that. I'm terribly sorry, Peter.
Well, you should have thought very quickly and said he repeated old, and you could have had him on repetition.
I wasn't quick enough, though. Brain
There are 47 seconds left for you now, Peter, on potpourri, starting now.
Now get as many petals from these fragrant blooms and blossoms as you can. Dry them in the sunshine if you can find any, and then when they are really crisp and fragrant, drop them into a bowl or other
Sheila Hancock's child.
Hesitation.
Yes. So what were you searching for?
Well, I was trying to avoid using that pot, because it had an idea. I mean, I know it's nothing. It's nothing.
I think
because you said potpourri, I'd imagine keeping all these things in a pot. You think wouldn't be right at all, and wouldn't provide the right odor. And
I said it.
In fact, I wish I hadn't ever had anything to do with it at all.
I gave an alternative pronunciation so that you could take it the other way and interpret it the other way.
Yes,
there are 28 seconds with you, Sheila, on potpourri, starting now.
Often these things are in jars or they can be in a little sachet, and the idea is, I think, to keep it amongst your undies or your handkerchiefs, and that imparts a nice fragrance for you to carry around with you. It may have started, like most of these perfumed things, around the time of the plague, where people waved things in front of them to prevent themselves getting the disease. In those days they probably were an orange.
So Sheila kept going then successfully and spoke when the whistle went, gained the extra point, and has taken the lead at the end of that round. Clement Freud, will you please begin the next round? The subject is peanuts. Can you talk on peanuts for 60 seconds, starting now?
Peanuts are also known as monkey nuts and come in outer husks containing an inner oleous kernel which can be squeezed to provide oil.
it himself, hesitation.
Yes, and that fact that he completely dried up after 15 seconds, which is so unusual, nobody could believe it and nobody dared to challenge. Sheila, you got in first and you have 45 seconds on peanuts starting now.
You can have these salted and very tasty they are too. Monkeys like them quite a lot and children take them to the zoo and feed the animals with them. They also are nice in brownies, which is a sort of biscuit that you can put them into, and very crunchy and nice they are.
Kenneth Williams has challenged.
Too nice.
Yes, it was too nice. There are 27 seconds on peanuts now with you, Kenneth, starting now.
This is a stinkingly uninspiring subject. All I can say is when you get them into your mouth...
Clement Freud is challenged.
Deviation from peanuts.
Eh?
This is a stinkingly unexciting subject. It has nothing to do with peanuts.
The subject is peanuts.
It is peanuts, and he said this is a stinkingly
uninspiring subject.
So, Kenneth, you have a point, and you have 23 seconds on peanuts starting now.
Oh, what an itching under me wee plate. She cried as a bit of the nut got lodged there. And I said, what's for tea? Oh, the rose on toast for you, she said, my man. I said, but after peanuts, do you think it goes? Oh, you could have them.
Sheila Hancock is challenged.
You could have them.
Repetition of,
That's how she talks about oh, do you fancy the people
That's how she talks.
Stuffed on there's got to get peanut. Oh, there you go again.
Yes.
She always does that.
Yes, well, if you're going to go like that, you're going to impersonate her, then it is a repetition because there was too many O's, and there are 4 seconds now with you, Sheila, on peanuts, starting now.
It's also a rather attractive little strip cartoon fella.
Sheila Hancock again was speaking when the whistle went, so has increased her lead at the end of that round, and Sheila, we'd like you to begin the next round, and the subject is a bad night. Can you talk to us about that? Yes, the mind begins to move.
It's a dodgy one, isn't it?
Yeah. A boggle-minding one. A mind-boggling one, I'm sorry. A boggle-minded chairman is talk about a mind-boggling question. A bad night, Sheila, 60 seconds starting now.
A bad night starts with Ellie Jane being difficult about going to bed and carries on from there. When I've eventually hurled her into her room, I go down exhausted and I've run out of scotch. And then I sit there and watch pretty abysmal television, which invariably is myself, and I go to bed...
Kenneth Williams is challenged.
Oh, yes, deviation. How could it invariably be herself that she's watching
It's
on television?
invariably
We are to assume that she's got domination over every channel, are we? I'm invariably watching myself.
I meant
Invariably. Not what you said, night girl. Shut your mouth. Shut your mouth.
Shut your mouth for a bit. You said enough for a moment.
I beg your pardon. She was carrying all the way from King's Cross. You talked to you like that? I thought you'd move. Oh, just kick me as you found.
All the way back to platform 7.
Yes, lovely
Kenneth,
manners.
I know that Sheila was embarrassed when she talked about abysmal television, so she tried to cover it up by saying it was invariably herself that was abysmal. And I maintain that, well, I felt that she was conveying that it was herself that was abysmal, and though she was being modest and not the television was abysmal. Therefore, she keeps the subject, and there are 37 seconds
Are you
with
implying that I am abysmal by letting me see that subject?
No.
I think I'd rather you
implying
awarded
that you were being modest, Sheila. So you have 37 seconds on a bad night starting now.
Then I get up to my...
Kenneth Williams has challenged.
I was
Sheila
drawing breath.
36 seconds on a bad night, Sheila, starting now.
Oh, it's been nice to
And
see
when
you.
I get into the bed, I can't get comfortable.
Clement Freud is challenged.
Repetition of bed is the third.
Yes, 33 seconds now on a bad night, Clement, starting now.
Of all the bad nights, Sir Lancelot was probably deemed to be the very worst. He not only beat his wife, he neglected his children. He paid lip service to his king without ever doing the sort of things that would...
Kenneth Williams has challenged. Yes, I agree. So 19 seconds now left on a bad night with you, Kenneth, starting now.
And Arthur said to Guinevere, apropos, Lancelot, thou shouldst cling to me and claim me thine, not his, nor another's, but thine own.
Clement Freud is challenged.
All their signs.
Yes, there was too much dining there. O's for the Scots. And,
Come on, Nick, come on.
6 seconds for you, Clement, on a bad night, starting now.
Tuesday, the 28th of February, 1846, was deemed by many to be a bad night.
Clement Freud was then speaking when the whistle went. He moved forward, but he's still in second place behind our leader, who is still Sheila Hancock, and Kenneth Williams. Your turn to begin. The subject, the Golden Fleece. One of those lovely ones that Ian Messler thinks of especially for you. Will you talk about it now for 60 seconds, starting now?
Of course, it does all have its origins in Greek mythology, with this Eno did not like the first husband's lot of children, and Nephili got this fleece out which could fly through the air, and these kids went off. But one fell off Ellis, after which the Hellespont is named. Also, the Golden Fleece is one of the grandest of the European chivalric titles instituted, I recall, by Philip Le Bon, or for the benefit of you ignorant fools, Philip the Good.
I Clement Freud has challenged you.
I said you ignorant fools. That's my failing, wasn't it? That was my very failing. In trying to be clever, I undone my own natural work.
Yes. Clement Freud, you challenged. Why?
Really
The repetition of Philip.
Yes.
I shouldn't have said it twice.
25 seconds with Clement Freud on the Golden Fleece, starting now.
If you drive along the A12 in the direction of Yarmouth, you will find a public house on the left-hand side of the road called the Golden Fleece. The licensing hours are 11 a.m. till 2:30 and 5 in the afternoon until 10 at night. And the landlord's wife is called Rosie and makes pork pies.
Peter Jones has challenged. Why?
Hesitation. He couldn't remember what she made.
Oh, I don't think he really hesitated, Peter. Well tried, but bad luck. 6 seconds on the Golden Fleece, still with you, Clement, starting now.
Ham sandwiches, turkey crackers, cheddar cheese, and pickles.
Peter Jones has challenged.
Hesitation.
Yes, I agree that time, Peter. 2 seconds with you, Peter, on the Golden Fleece, starting now.
It's at Whitney in Oxfordshire, this pub.
Peter Jones and Kenneth Williams are equal in second place behind Sheila Hancock and Clement Freud, who are equal in first place. And Peter, your turn to begin. The subject, pawnbrokers. Would you talk about that one now for 60 seconds, starting now?
Well, of course, there is a great deal more porn about now than there has been for a long time. You read about it in the newspapers, you see it on the hoardings and in the magazines, on bookstores and elsewhere. Photographs outside cinemas.
Kenneth Williams has challenged. Why?
Deviation. The word is pawnbrokers.
Yes, but he's taken the porn and about the pornography that is people...
there are no brokers in porn.
Yes, but you could, colloquially speaking, a person who sells pornographic material is a pawnbroker, and he's to be complimented on taking it away that nobody in the audience thought about. So, Peter, you have 43 seconds on pawnbrokers, starting now.
If it goes on increasing at this rate, then I suppose we may well have pawnbrokers to cope with it in the future. But I wouldn't like to see this, because to me, the ideal type of pawnbroker is the one who has a shop with 3 balls outside it. And he sells things from this shop. He also takes from people, customers who come, in exchange for money, objects which they sometimes value and sometimes have
Clement Freud is challenged.
Repetition of sometimes.
Yes, there are 11 seconds now on pawnbrokers with you, Clement, starting now.
There are streets in the City of London, and especially in the East End, where pawnbrokers proliferate. Anyone who has anything of any value...
Kenneth Williams has challenged.
Anything of any...
No.
Anything of any value. Anything is one word, and any value is 2 words. So, alas, you didn't get in just before the whistle, Kenneth. And Clement has half a second on pawnbrokers, starting now.
And redeems it.
Clement Freud has now gone into a definite lead at the end of that round. And Clement, your turn to begin. And the subject, dressing. Would you talk on that for 60 seconds, starting now?
In the culinary sense of this word, dressing consists usually of oil and vinegar, salt, pepper, mustard, and any herbs or spices that you might like to put with it. But dressing in the more usual sense consists of putting on your knickers.
Peter Jones's challenge.
I don't think we can accept salt as a dressing. You know, it certainly does enhance
So what's
the
your
flavour.
challenge, Peter?
Deviation.
Why? The
Because,
salt isn't a dressing, but didn't he establish that it was part of a dressing that he was making?
No, he said... Did he?
Yes, he did. I'm afraid.
well, I'm terribly sorry then. How embarrassing for me.
I don't think it's embarrassing. We love to hear from you whenever you want to come in, Peter.
Oh, well, that's
be our guest. 43 seconds with you, Clement, still on dressing, starting now.
After a game of football, you go into something called a dressing room, in which in the first instance you remove all your outer clothing, often your inner ones as well, and at the end of the match or contest in which you've taken part, you go back to this dressing encampment, if you will, and put on...
Sheila Hancock's challenge.
You can't honestly call it a dressing encampment, can you? Isn't that slightly devious?
No, I think if you're searching for another word, it's jolly difficult, because to me, encampments has a very military ring to it, I must say.
I played all my games in the army.
I think it's a difficult one on which to... I know, as it's difficult to judge, let's ask the audience with their superior wisdom to be the final arbiters in this situation. And if you agree with Sheila's challenge about the encampment, will you cheer? And if you disagree, will you boo? And will you all do it together now? Sheila, they don't want an encampment for a dressing room. So there are 19 seconds left for you, Sheila, on dressing, starting now.
Well, I don't wear anything in bed, so I get out, and the first thing I do is put on me pants. I wish I'd never started this. And then I put on me dress. Afterwards, I possibly wear shoes. And I don't wear one.
Hesitation.
Yes, you were all being honest. I think they were letting you go in to see how you dressed, actually.
I bitterly regretted it directly I started.
I know, and you paused all the time, but they were going to hear all about your dressing. But the idea of you putting on your pants and then your shoes, I must say, that was a lovely. Especially in the cold weather. Peter, you got in first, so you have the subject of dressing, and there are only 2 seconds to go, starting now.
Dressing is something that society...
So Peter moved forward at the end of that round, but he's still in third place, just behind Sheila. Sheila's behind our leader, who's still Clement Freud, and Kenneth Williams, your turn to begin. And the subject, my testimonials.
Oh, God.
Can you talk on that subject for 60 seconds, starting now?
Mine are pretty tatty and very dusty. My agent representing me for professional appearances and the like got them out the other day and said, have you seen these lately? I said, oh, gracious me, a certificate for acting. Where'd I win that? He said, well, it wasn't the Mabel Temmerley Award. She was always going around giving it away. I said, oh, do you ever have occasion to produce these things? Oh, yes, he replied. Various organizations that set themselves up as statutory bodies governing the standards laid down in various professions.
Clement Freud is challenged. Why?
Repetition of various.
Yes.
Various bodies and various professions.
That's right, Clement. So you have 15 seconds now on my testimonials, starting now.
And as the footman walked down the path on the way out from the castle, he thought to himself, if I had had a better education, I would have got that job. This is one of the older stories about testimonials, the beginning of which is so filthy that I'm unable...
The whistle went any further before we got any further. But alas, we have no more time to play just a minute. So let me give you the final score. Kenneth Williams finished in a commanding 4th place. Peter did extraordinarily well, was quite brilliant, but he did finish in 3rd place. Sheila was outstandingly good and finished in 2nd place behind this week's winner, Clement Freud. We do hope you've enjoyed this edition of Just a Minute, and from all of us here, goodbye.
The chairman of Just a Minute was Nicholas Parsons. The programme was devised by Ian Messiter and produced by Simon Brett.